tonight, the Steubenville rape case is far from over. Are there more convictions to come? And what about the new threats against the victim? I'll talk to attorneys on both sides, plus my exclusive interview with the father of one of the high school football stars who was found guilty. And Traci Lords, herself a victim of rape in Steubenville.
I think that there is a thickness in that city.
The Steubenville rape case has cut a deep divide in the city, but Ohio's Attorney General says the case wasn't just about one city. It also speaks to a larger cultural problem. Back with me now is Walter Madison, attorney for Malik Richmond. Also joining us, attorney Gloria Allred and actress Traci Lords, who grew up in Steubenville and was herself raped there at the age of 10. Welcome, Gloria and Traci. Gloria, let me start with you. You've heard very emotional reaction from Malik Richmond's father. You might expect that. He's his father. What do you make of this verdict? What does it say about Steubenville, or indeed America, and teenagers today?
Well, the judge did find that both defendants were delinquent. In other words, that they were guilty of the crime of rape, and one of them was guilty not only of the crime of rape, but also displaying images of a minor in nudity-oriented material, which in itself is a crime. I was very interested in what you had to say, sir, because you seem to be wobbling about your client's so-called apology. Was he acting? Was this just heartfelt? Which is it? I mean, you really can't have it both ways.
Well, I can't fool everyone. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom, so it's easy for you to be critical for your whatever reason you have, but you can't fool everyone. There wasn't a dry eye there. That was sincere, and what you witnessed was the compassion of that young man. That was his character.
Well, compassion for what? Because what pain did he cause? Why don't you just say it? He raped her. He put 2 fingers inside the vagina of a child when she did not have the opportunity to resist.
Well, they're both
and that
children.
was clear.
They're both children.
Well, all right, but one of them is guilty of a crime, and one of them is the victim of a crime. And there's a big difference between the two. There's no equality between them.
Well, one would disagree with that, because people that feel the way you do felt that they should be prosecuted as adults, and that just isn't the case. The fact that his name was mentioned 4 or 5 times in the trial is the case. The fact that his parents feel that there may just be, we might have the wrong person here and there's no equity in the verdict is the case, and I think that's the opinion of a vast majority of people. I received 96 emails today of people from Oregon to Maine wishing, people who are on the other side of this have shown sympathy and compassion and have identified with my client.
I've also seen on Twitter it blow up with people enraged by this whole case, and particularly enraged by the culture of behavior of these young men, particularly, again, related to a football team. Maybe this goes to their heads, they're arrogant, I don't know. Traci, you've heard it being described as a cultural thing in a wider sense. You believe it's something that Steubenville has had a problem with for a long time?
I do believe that, and I have to tell you, I did not cry. I think that they were crying because they got caught, not because they did something wrong, and that's the big issue here. Once again, you're putting the victim on trial. You're torturing her. If he's so sorry, one day he's sorry, the next day he's going to appeal and put her through it again. I think it's disgusting.
Well, I think that's a ridiculous
unbelievable.
statement.
And the apple does not fall far from the tree. They are the stupid in Stupidville. Truly. Unbelievable.
Well, there's no reason to be critical of people. That's just not an intelligent statement.
I think the father deserves criticism.
There's definitely a reason.
Traci, the father can be criticized for not being around when his son was young, and he can be criticized by his own admission for being an alcoholic, but there's no suggestion he's ever been a sex offender. We've got to make that very clear. He's never been a rapist. So the Apple 45...
That's not what I'm saying.
Well,
I'm saying for him to stand up and say that his son is innocent and there was no evidence is just a whole lot of nonsense. I don't know what trial he was at.
Let me ask Walter Madison. There clearly was evidence.
The one you weren't at.
Right, but there clearly was evidence against your client.
Well, there was evidence, very thin. There was evidence, but the question is, was the evidence sufficient to establish a proof beyond a reasonable doubt? And obviously, the people who were there...
It was.
If I may, Ms. Lords, clearly the people who were there who sobbed, court staff, news reporters, and all the like and spectators, they disagreed. Now,
but it doesn't really matter. You know something? We don't decide things by a poll.
And by the way,
by a poll of people in the courtroom,
and people aren't just crying.
People in the public. That's not how we decide cases.
People were not just emotional because they thought he was innocent. You can be moved to emotion by a moment of high drama like that.
So what do we do?
Right.
What do we do? How do we advance this? How do we take?
Let me tell you what I think.
How do we advance this to a higher level? level.
I think you have to start from a position that the biggest victim here is not your client who's been convicted of rape.
You said that, I didn't.
I'm saying it.
Yes.
I'm saying on everything that I've seen, the biggest victim is this poor young girl who, inarguably, was unconscious of most of this experience. She was being carried around half naked. She was clearly being abused. The next day, she is compounded by this revolting behavior on social media with pictures of her in her worst possible vulnerable moment being spread around with these kids.
Nothing my client did.
And now there are people threatening her.
But nothing my client did.
I didn't say that. Threatening to beat her, threatening to kill her.
Well, that's why people are upset for Ms. Malik Richmond.
Let me ask you.
None of that he did.
Let me ask you this.
That's not the point.
But
I think it's exactly
what is your
point.
view of that behavior?
Oh, it's abhorrent. I don't support it one bit, and I am not here supporting that. My client, I'm here as a representative of Malik Richmond. Malik Richmond did none of those things. Malik Richmond had one text out of a day full of testimony, full of text messages and emails and tweets, which he had none. Okay, so...
But it's not really just about the text. It's about the crime of violence that he committed against the 16-year-old.
But this is low level. How do we adjust? Where do we go from here?
Well, where we go from here is we acknowledge if a person does something wrong, then we make amends to that person.
According to you, he did so, and you're criticizing him. But he did so, and you're criticizing him.
Well, but I think you need him.
But he's doing what you just said to do.
You said he's going to appeal, so obviously he doesn't agree with the judgment of the court.
No, I didn't say what. You said...
Oh, so you're not going to appeal from the judgment of delinquency, in other words, guilty?
I don't believe he should have to register as a sex offender till he dies.
Well, and that is part of the punishment. If, in fact, he is guilty of this crime, he does have to register as a sex offender.
That's unfair.
And others need to know that is one of the consequences of rape.
I think you would be in the minority in that opinion. I don't think you should have to explain to your grandchildren when you're 7. Well, you'll have your chance, Ms. Lords. I don't believe that a person is 75 years old should have to explain for something they did at 16 when scientific evidence would support your brain isn't fully developed. When the evidence in a case would suggest that you were under the influence.
Listen, I've got 3 teenage sons, and when you get to 16, 17, your brain's developed enough to know you shouldn't be raping girls.
Well, there are people that know better than you that would disagree.
Well, I don't think so. Honestly, I think you get to 17, you're a late teen, you're nearly a man. You know?
Either way, would you want to be judged for the rest of your life for something you did at 16?
Well, then maybe you ought to think about that at age 16.
I am being judged for the rest of my life.
I mean, Tracy,
you engaged in behavior that I don't think people agree with either.
Excuse me. I've been judged my whole life because of what happened to me when I was a young girl.
Did you choose to make adult films?
Girl, don't make her a victim.
I'm not talking about that. Did you choose to make adult films?
Don't do it again.
Did you choose to make adult films and profit?
I was a 15-year-old
Did you cash the checks?
And I don't need to apologize.
Did you live the lifestyle that afforded you?
What is the relevance of that?
Well, she's saying don't judge someone.
It is so wrong.
That was a choice she made.
That is a choice she made.
I'm not critical of her.
But it also wasn't a criminal act.
I'm not judgmental of her about it.
Well, you must be judgmental. That's why you brought it up. No one else did.
I've got to bring this to a halt. A lot of people have been very judgmental in this case. The bottom line is this girl is the real victim. And I understand why you feel the way you do, Clark. I understand why his father does, but he is a convicted rapist. And if he wins on appeal, come back here, we'll have another conversation.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not. Did you hear me disagree with that?
Okay, I've got to leave it there. We'll debate this again. Everyone's still talking about this. It's a very contentious issue. But thank you for coming today. Thank you, Gloria, and thank you, Tracy.
Stupidville.
When we come back.